Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 21. Yes, 21 of season 5 of Black Writers Read. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I'm the founder, producer, and host for this series. So, for folks who have been writing with me since 2020, you know, my season typically only goes like 18 episodes. This one's going to go almost to 30. I'm really excited. We have a couple more folks to present before the end of the year, including a really, really, really special moment for Juneteenth. More information will become available on those. I hope you're following me on all the socials, Black Writers Read, and also where you are tuning in from today. I am very excited to continue celebrating National Poetry Month with today's guest. Black Writers Read showcases, celebrates, and honors the words, work, and traditions of writers from Black writers from across the country, across genres, across experiences, and across the African diaspora. Black Writers Read is a behind-the-scenes conversation into the craft and what it means to create as a Black author in today's society. Since starting the series during the summer of 2020, we've hosted over 80 authors representing over 15 genres from 5 countries and 24 states. Our platform includes the live stream interviews, audio podcasts, book clubs, and curriculum development assistance. Find us online at blackwritersread.com. Today, we welcome members from Brothers Keeper Poetry Theater Ensemble. Since 2013, Brothers Keeper Poetry Theater Ensemble has been a beacon of hope and transformation, weaving together words, emotions, and stories to create powerful theatrical performances that resonate deeply with their audiences. The group blends elements of poetry, spoken word, theater, and music to create a unique performance, which is not only entertaining and educational, but also soulful. Passionate about fostering diversity and social change, Brothers Keeper has taken their craft into diverse spaces, performing at city halls, Job Corps programs, corporate offices, seeking to enhance their DEI initiatives, and young adult substance abuse centers. With every stage they grace, they aim to spark dialogue, challenge perceptions, and encourage healing through the transformative power of art. Brothers Keeper has received citations of merit from the City Hall in the cities of East Providence, and Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Brothers Keeper is headlining at Poetry and Pie, the Florence Poetry Festival, on Saturday, April 26th at 7 p.m. at the Bombyx Center, which is in Florence, Massachusetts. Poetry and Pie is a collaboration between the Florence Poetry Festival, the Bombyx Center for Art and Equity, and the Florence Pie Bar. Florence Pie Bar will have a pop-up pie shop with slices of pie for sale. So I hope Brothers Keeper and the pie for sale will entice you to buy your tickets now. Poetry and Pie will also feature performances from the 3 finalists from this year's Valley Youth Poetry Slam, which was hosted by the Academy of Music in Northampton, Massachusetts, last week, actually. I had the lovely opportunity as serving as one of this year's judges. To purchase your tickets, and I'll be sharing the link to this throughout our conversation, visit bombyx.live/events/poetry-pie, and I'll be sharing the link on the screen, so you don't have to write it down quite yet. Black Writers Read's live broadcast today is presented in collaboration with the Florence Poetry Carnival. Black Writers Read is a proud media sponsor of this year's event. Special thanks to Rachel Serene Blackman, founder, producer, and curator of the annual Florence Poetry Carnival, for introducing me to Brothers Keeper. So, for those of you who are new to Black Writers Read, we're going to mix it up a little bit today, given that we have members from an ensemble here today. I'm actually going to play a video clip excerpt of one of their performances, and then 2 of the 4 members of the ensemble are here to chat with me today. Excuse me. And yes, I am still dealing with that lovely cough. So we're going to go ahead, transition, watch their performance, and then I will invite 2 of the gentlemen here for our conversation.
Arms no longer show the expressway to euphoria. Track marks reveal the traffic jam of scabs detouring him to blue band his calf instead. Am I my brother's keeper?
He punches in at around 3 a.m. The corner becomes his office window. A Glock 9 becomes his insurance policy, but it doesn't mean that it covers his health care. Am I my brother's keeper?
He's infatuated with guns and women. Fully loaded when he pulls his trigger, both life and death are conceived. Dead bodies in the Providence River. Newborn babe at women and infants. Both missing persons not even cared for. Am I my brother's keeper?
Am I my brother's keeper? To keep my eyes closed and head down, ignoring his ignorance, displaying my distaste for his discrepancies, diluting my morals, dissolving my scruples, and degrading my decisions.
We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but our false principles force us to look the other way.
We all read the gospel according to
Mind your business.
The manuscript that proclaims it has nothing to do with me.
The section of the Torah which contains verses about selective sin.
The Torah, which tells us to tread lightly towards other people's problems. Am
Am
I my brother's
keeper?
keeper?
We educate ourselves for the betterment of self. We learn not to lean in on the lives of others. We grasp onto the mistakes we make and avoid any conflict or confrontation.
As crazy as that sounds, when strangers make noise, we draw the shades over our ears, blocking their sounds with our mouths muted, witnessing domestic drama with our eyes closed.
Oh, we'll shout from the mountaintop over racial inequalities. We'll make noise when gas prices soar. We'll even call out those that abuse their political positions.
Or when Leroy is beating his wife, and our next door neighbor's being robbed by Debo, when Keisha's all cracked out and 7 months pregnant.
From her uncle, that time she went down south. We're so quiet.
We get tunnel vision, or even cringe.
When we hear about what happened in Penn State.
Chris Brown and Rihanna.
R. Kelly or O.J. Simpson.
Don't even go there.
We don't make eye contact with the less fortunate.
Cause unwanted responsibility. We shy away from other people's pain.
And make up the guilt with turkey and Christmas donations.
Shame holds us hostage to forced charity, to the chunk change we contribute to these charitable organizations.
Will only give us a false sense of godliness.
Am I my brother's keeper?
Yes, I am.
Hunger visits the rich and the poor. Calamity turns a blind eye to whoever walks in its path.
We can't wait for another Katrina or Rita or Fukushima to find it in our hearts to give.
Infant wipes the slate clean, keeps the guilt off our turn backs.
Like tsunamis happen on a daily,
Causing the foreclosure of our souls, the suicide's bittersweet serenade.
people pouring off their principles in exchange for putting proper provision on the table.
Starvation is the universal language of
But
poverty.
we are deaf to the travesty of hungry bellies.
The stench of neglect is still here.
Stain and apathy won't go away.
The ugliness of Wall Street is now highlighted in the occupation
Of public spaces by those who previously had occupation.
While the military-industrial complex remains a complex occupation.
And the military seems to have a strange preoccupation.
with occupation. So yes, I am my brother's keeper.
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 Offering spoken nourishment to a dying world.
Lighting the load from my brother's back.
Lending him a helping hand.
Helping him stand
On his own 2 feet.
Keeping my brother as I am.
Hey everybody, welcome back.
Yes, that was amazing. Yes, there was a little bit of a glitch. You saw an auto play of another video. That's somebody that I absolutely love. So now I'd love to welcome Lawrence and Marlon onto the virtual stage. Hello.
How's
How
it
you doing?
going?
Great. How are you both doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having us. We're very glad to be here. Shouts to everybody listening and checking out Black Writers Read.
Yes. Thank you so much. So, before we dive into the conversation, I would love for the two of you to introduce yourselves.
My name is Marlon Carey. I am, it's hard to box myself in because I have a hard time saying one thing. So I would say quickly, I'm a poet, educator, actor, communicator, entertainer, and storyteller. And I have been with Brothers Keeper since it was another group. We've been around for a long time, and I function a lot of times with this gentleman as sort of the lead for the group.
Nice. Thank you. And Lawrence?
I am a pastor at Open Arms Church in Providence, Rhode Island, that serves the homeless or those that are in need. And we are affiliated with Amos House, which is a soup kitchen. Again, I that is not my main job. I do that for the sake of just me being me. I do work for Brown Health as a HVAC / boiler operator, but my heart and love is poetry, and I just love the way we get together and put a show on.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, because that clip was fierce. And I'm like, I'm in the back doing all the snaps and stuff. I'm feeling very like, hey, 90s poetry scene. That was, oh my gosh, which do y'all always perform accompanied to music?
Not always. The Lizard Lounge. Shout to the Lizard Lounge and everybody over
Mm.
there. Blake Newman and company. I've been going there, for over 20 years. I've been going to that place ever since I got out of college. I found that place. I've been going. So I've met a lot of my friends and group members there. So that's a specific place that you get that sort of neo soul, like when we go in the early 90s, that vibe. They play jazz behind the poetry. And there's not a
Yeah.
lot of places in the country that do that as well as the Lizard Lounge. And so that's one of my favorite places. So when we're there, we're playing with the Blake Newman trio right now. It used to be the Jeff Robinson trio, but Jeff retired, as it were. But yeah, when we have the opportunity, certainly music. But usually it's the music comes from us. Usually, if we're doing things, I have a drum, Lawrence is doing some singing. So as an ensemble that puts these things together, poetry and theater and music, usually that's coming from us. But when we get the opportunity, we do rock out with some bands like the trio and others. We're very, very really flexible.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Nice. So I'd like to officially launch into the conversation. The first question that I have for you both gentlemen is, what is Brothers Keeper Poetry Theater Ensemble's origin story? How did you all meet, the four of you that are in the group right now, and why the name Brothers Keeper?
See, I was bitten by a radioactive spider.
Yes.
And then he got stabbed with the poison pen. No, so we years ago, I can't really remember how many years ago. If we try to pinpoint Brothers Keeper's origin as 2012, my son is 12 years old. He was born in that year. The world was supposed to end. We sort of say it's about 12 years old.
Oh, the Y2K.
The Y2K.
Yeah.
So this particular iteration of the poetry theater group, Brothers Keeper, about 12 years. So before that, like I said, after, I was telling you this, and people didn't know this happened. This is backstage stuff. As we were saying, we'll fill you in. Years ago, there was a gentleman named Napoleon X, who was a good friend of ours, and he's putting together a film called Black Men Can Fly about
George S. Lima, who was a
Tuskegee Airman.
Tuskegee Airman.
And he's from Fall River, Massachusetts. Well,
Well, yeah.
Between Fall River and East Providence. He's really East Providence resident. Yes.
I have to say that he was Cape Verde.
And he's Cape Verde. So,
Cape Verde.
So essentially,
Nice.
Mr. Lima is a wonderful local hero, as it were. And so Napoleon wanted to do a documentary about him, and he had a vision to get a bunch of poets together to do kind of like a super poetry group. And so he was already in contact with Lawrence and I think Christopher at the time.
Yeah.
And somehow Eunice and I sort of got together with them. So each of us wrote our own poem, Black Men Can Fly, on this theme. And then when we started doing them together, the vision just appeared to him clearer. And he came to one of our shows we were doing in Johnson, Wales. I'll never forget. And he runs in and he's like, you get a t-shirt, you get a t-shirt, you get a t-shirt.
Like Oprah Winfrey.
Like Oprah Winfrey. Yeah. So suddenly we all had on these white t-shirts and the group name was Pro-Town Princes of Poetry. And we were like, I'm not sure I like the name. Good to get a free shirt. So we did the show. Yeah. And then afterwards, we're sort of looking at, okay, wait a minute. He obviously has a vision of where he wants us to go. And we, would have at least like to sit down and huddle about what we're going to call ourselves. So it was a little between like, it could have been incredible management. He could have been a very, very driven manager, or we could have been very like crushed under that. But we decided that we were not quite okay with being the Pro-Town Princes of Poetry, and we wanted to do another name. So we call ourselves Spitting Images, and we were just spitting images out of our mouths. It was like this very sort of, and then eventually, because of group dynamics and ego, we decided to change and rebrand, and so the personnel changed. Christopher Johnson, who was a fine poet in his own right, we just needed to shift a little bit, and so in 2012, which I believe is correct.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, we decided to start a new group, and because of again the previous lesson about ego and group dynamics, we decided to call ourselves Brothers Keeper because it reminded us to stay a unit and to stay tight. And for me, to be 100% transparent, I believed at the time that it left room for Christopher to return. It left room for, if anybody's going to ever re-enter this thing, you got to now come in under a concept that's clear. You got to be your brother's keeper. And so that's sort of how
I want to clarify something too. It's not that, because we're men, we have flaws, and sometimes life gets in the way. But one of the things I can say with this group, we can come in with our arrogance and our ego, but it always gets checked and corrected. Where I can be mad at him for like 2 weeks, but those 2 weeks, now I'm kind of like shortchanging myself because now nothing's getting done. Meanwhile, Brothers Keeper is still doing what they need to do until I get myself on point, and then I see the diagram of what has already been produced, and we put it together. So, yeah, we still have our flaws, but we understand who we represent and what we represent.
Right.
But honestly, I feel like that's what strong families and strong performance ensembles do. Because I can definitely say I've been a part of a couple of things. I actually started in music first, and then theater, and then writing. And we've had like our moments, our fallouts, but when it's time to do the deed, we do the deed. So I totally understand that.
Right. And absolutely. So that's sort of, I think, one of the key pieces of this group that I love, because I love performing, love being on stage. They call Marlon Jerry, it's fine. But I know that it's special. I know that it's different when they get all four of us together. Or now it's five. We'll talk about that in a second. But when we all get together like Voltron, and
yes,
it's something different. It's a different thing. You can get the coolness of Marlon doing the Rubik's Cube time poem, Lawrence doing this singing art. But when you get it all together, you've got a spectrum of the sort of black male identity. A big part of what we do is we all talk about the black male experience from different angles. I grew up with a single parent mom. Art grew up with a strong father. Lawrence grew up with a father who wasn't quite there, but his brother was there. Eunice. So everybody has different pieces of how we got here to be, years old, and still alive. We don't have extensive prison records. Most of us have degrees. Like, we're all fathers who are active in our kids' life. It's a good group of 5 individuals. It's a solid group of 5 guys who, you look at what all those little plays, the movies, The Wood, or those other movies about the Black life.
Brothers.
We are a lot of that without the sort of the caricature. We're all real individuals. We're all committed to the cause and the cause of family.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we get together, it's something more beautiful than the individual. Each of us is great, but together we're something just much more beautiful and much more valuable to the community. We even go across the spectrum of skin color. We got all the different flavors of the brothers. So
yeah, no, he did. Yes.
We totally do.
So
2 things before I go into the next question, which I knew this was going to be a lot of fun. One, I can already tell who the nerd of the group is. Spider-Man, Voltron, Marlon.
Listen, absolutely. I mean, I think, and we all have a little bit of that in us, but certainly, man, I've been, 77 was when I was born, so all the 80s, all that other stuff. Yeah. Absolutely, man. Voltron, the Silverhawks, Thundercats, I'm all about it.
Yes. The 80s kids go strong because I was born in 79.
Still here. We are still here. Now, Lawrence is my senior by some years. And I'm also a veteran of the Navy.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yep.
One
of the things that I like to just to talk about this group is that our backgrounds, it's different, but it's similar because we use the experiences that we have. Like, I deal with with people that are homeless, that are in need, and then Marlon deals with the schools. Art deals with the schools, and then in Phoenix.
Phoenix also is education performance based. Yes.
Oh, cool.
So we have our social consciousness comes with all the experience, and then it's easier to put things together because we know what's outside of our own household, so to speak.
Yeah. These men are literally my best men for my wedding. I don't know if you know,
wow.
Everybody in this group was like a best man or involved with someone in my wedding. So these are my real, actual best friends.
Yes, oh my gosh, I love that. And the second thing that I wanted to mention, and this I think will age us as well, when you mentioned, there's a 5th member, because I'm like, there's all this publicity that's just for y'all. I'm like, okay, are we gonna be like Eddie Murphy and do like the 5th Beatle thing? Like, please explain to me who this 5th person is, because I want to make sure they ain't left out.
That's quite fair. You want to talk a little about Phoenix? I mean, I guess I should talk about Phoenix and I. So I do a lot of things and wear a lot of hats. One of my other things is a group called United Soul Alliance. It's a rap group. So Phoenix and I have been friends for years under this rap group sort of thing. United Soul Alliance, check it out. A lot of good stuff is out there. But I'm wearing different hats and wearing different hats. So he has also done acting. And like I said, he also worked for a short while in education. So we've just been friends many, many, many years. And something shifted one day when we needed to have someone come in to sort of, be another brother because, Art couldn't make it, Eunice couldn't make it or something. And in any situation, at least 2 of us, we could still give you what you need because we work so well together, Lawrence and I as the core here. But we thought, we wanted to bring another voice in and give another opportunity. And, Phoenix has been an excellent actor, a great performer for years. And again, one of my best friends was at the wedding. So I go, hey, can we see what's up with Phoenix a little bit and bring him in? And he came in and he did one of Eunice's poems. So it was really interesting to have, a genuine sort of actor who could pop in because you could get 4 actors together and they can be easily instructed. Here are the words you're going to say, and here's your actions, and they just sort of do it. You get 4 or 5 poets together, but everyone's like, "Well, I don't know if I want to do that one. That poem doesn't represent me." And whatever that you have to navigate through to get 5 individuals to present something that aren't pretty much specific actors. So Phoenix is good for bringing him in to be able to be flexible, learn new materials very quickly, and be able to join into, because a lot of our material is group poems. We'll do a few of them for this Bombix presentation, but I think as we expand Brother Up the show, we'll be able to do more things and make it a 2-hour presentation and add. So Phoenix is very flexible.
He has been with us for the past 5 shows. If you want to look at it, it's not like he just, hey, you feel like there's somebody sick, can you just fill in?
It's not.
He's not a substitute teacher.
Agree. Yeah. So but you're right. Right now, I think and we're gonna maybe give him some flowers at this show here, because he did say, he said it's funny. So there's the logo has these 4 heads. Okay, now it's 4 of us. It literally is a picture of us in our hats, and I made it into a silhouette. So Phoenix the other day said, "Hey, can we do a 5th head?" Yeah. I'm like, "Bro, this is slow down."
But I mean, it's 5 of y'all. So like I said, the 5th beat, I can see it now. The 4 of y'all, and then like Eddie Murphy in the skit standing in the front.
I still got it. No.
Sometimes he feels like Eddie Kane, if you know what I mean.
5 Heartbeats, right?
Oh, yeah.
But no, Phoenix is when you come into new to any group, right? It's a little bit of hazing, a little bit of ribbing, a little bit of you got to prove yourself to be here, and he's really done a great job to keep working towards that. And I think this show, I would say, if there's any tests, we'll have to give him some cookies after this show, because this is a big one. I'm really, really excited that Rachel, is bringing us out. That Bombix is excited to have us, and we plan to give a great show that we then continue to carry on and expand, because we don't just create these poetry plays for one-offs. It's generally we create something on the theme, and we think the important theme right now is Brother Up. Things are going to get hard. Things are going to be a little more difficult for the next
especially
few
now.
years. Brother Up, because you need that, and brothers don't usually, sisters have more of a an instituted system of how this works. My sister looks bad. Girl, I'm coming by with the ice cream. We gonna talk.
Yes.
It's a process, Guys like, yeah, man, I'm all right. Yeah, things are good. Just keeping my head above water.
Yep.
And your brother gonna go, you want to come by for a beer? Yeah, I could do that, man. And it's very slow. It's that we don't admit to needing help. That things are overwhelming us. So this really ties right into getting into mental health, men's mental health.
Right.
So that's sort of where Brother Up is to sort of, get the brothers to understand that it's okay to talk and share problems and hear some of the things. But what I really want to do at its best, it will tie in to some mental health help coming in. And I got a couple of friends of mine that are therapists that are very interested in. So this is going to expand. So Bombix is really a testing ground for this new set, and really the reconvening of a group that I think is necessary.
Nice. So I would love to hear, because you gave us a little bit of insight on the show. Can you talk about how shows come together? What does the collective writing process look like? And what other pieces are in your current repertoire?
It starts here.
Well, I would say in the beginning, we would have, this is what we would normally do. We make our way to the Lizard Lounge. But we already know we're going to Lizard Lounge that night, so we might as well go over our Colin's house, because he lives not too far from the Lizard Lounge. So we would have a board, and then we would talk about issues. Marlon would say, okay, this is what we need to talk about. Give me something to that will inspire what's going on in that paper, So let's just say it's health. So I'd write like a paragraph. He would write. All of us would just write a paragraph, and then we would see how it feels, what it sounds like, and then we would grow from there. That's just for like a writing technique, because we also had because Eunice went down south for a hot spell.
Yes.
So remember the singer. I can't even think of his name. He lived in Massachusetts. He filled in while Eunice was.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Elijah
Starr.
Yeah, because now I'm thinking of
man,
of outgoing Elijah. Yeah. So we would have.
See, you're just going inside jokes.
Yeah.
Usually, what it starts with is a phone call. This man will call me. He says, "Mom, we need to do a show, man. What's going on? Been a long time." Yeah. And I'll be like, "Yeah. I have this over here working on, but yeah, give me some stuff." And he'll start sending me stuff, and I'll get so many things. I'm like, "Okay, you want me to edit these into? Yeah. Turn them into poems. Go." And I'm like, "There's so many words." So we start getting together, he and I, and then we get the other guys roped in, and then eventually it really does turn into, like he's saying, board and working it out, and we do a lot of sharing. Every rehearsal we end by sharing. Just take away all the regular practicing. I was writing this little thing today. I got a haiku. I stumbled across something, and everyone shares. So from the sharing, sometimes we'll get a brilliant idea.
Right.
I didn't know you had that. You had that in the chamber, and so we just expand off of that excitement and then begin working on it. And it's a beautiful thing. But usually it's Lawrence. Lawrence is a person that is the inspiration for starting the shows. He'll say, "We got to get together, man. Come on. It's been so long." And so I appreciate that.
There was we went to a poetry slam. I think it was downtown Providence. So this is you and I, Eunice, and Christopher Johnson at the time. So we all did our piece and everything. Eunice goes up. I don't know exactly what he did, but he was holding on to this piece for the longest time. And I'm like, now I'm getting upset because he never shared that, and we could have did something with that. I don't even know if we ever did anything after that, because he goes, "Oh, I'll next rehearsal." And then, but that's what happens. Is like, me personally, if I have something I need to get out, I give it to them and see what they can come up with. It's like if we're gonna be cooking, I'm gonna add some ingredients. He's gonna add some ingredients, and we're gonna make sure that the gumbo tastes good because we're trying to sell it.
Amen.
So
nice. Yeah, I love this, and I just love the synergy that I could tell that the group is a lot of fun, and y'all get a lot done just from hearing from the two of you. So you shared a little bit about some of the topics and themes that come up in your work. I would love to know a little bit more about other themes and topics that show up in your work, and why is it important? And this question is very important to me, and I'll say why in a minute. Why is it important for Black men to embody these stories and present them in the form of poetry theater? So, Lawrence, Marlon, and I, in like our pre-show chat, and also for folks who are joining us today, I mentioned, so I'm a writer, and I write a lot about identity and all those things. Men, especially Black men, is something that I'm very passionate about. Ironically, so I'm also a playwright. Ironically, I've had people tell me that I write very strong male characters. I don't know where that's from, but I grew up with a very strong father figure. Well, both of my parents were very, very strong figures, but I think what it is for me, and I am that proud feminist that's all about equality, all about everybody living the life that they are meant to live. And so when it comes to writing and performance especially, I like on Black Writers Read eventually, I want to have a panel with Black male writers. I've had a couple on, and we've talked a little bit about this, where this writing from your own experiences is extremely important and very valuable, especially now, because of all of the negative images and stereotypes that are out there about Black men. And then two, there is this thing where, and I'm an educator, and my students say this, they're like, why do some people like women write men badly and all these other things? And so hearing directly from Black men about their experiences, for me, are extremely important and extremely vital to the literary canon. So, with all that said, what topics and themes are emerging in your work right now? And then why is it important for this type of work to be embodied by Black men sharing and presenting these stories in the form of poetry theater?
For me, I would say and he's my witness. A lot of my work, I like to show vulnerability, that Black men can be vulnerable and still have control. I know for a fact that Black men are reserved, that they are afraid to put something out there because people will try to use it against them. And one of the things that I do, like I have a poem that is called "In a Moment's Notice," and it's dealing with the issues I have with my son. And being that I'm a pastor, he's a PK kid, so not that I beat him to come to church or anything like that. But now my son's 28, and for me to invite him to church, there's this gap. So, in this poem, I bring him in, and he finally comes to church. And as he's coming along, he bends down, kisses me on the forehead before they close the casket. So that's what I try to catch them the audience. I try to catch the audience before they even understand what the poem is all about. But my main thing is I like to show the vulnerability, because once I show my vulnerability, you no longer have control of how I want to walk and talk in this life. That's my presentation when it comes to poetry, especially when it comes to Black men.
Absolutely. I think, the diversity and the spectrum of all that Black men can be is not inherent in a lot of the media and the culture that we're checking out. For a long time, it was just, first it was the token, right?
Oh, yeah.
I grew up in the 80s, with the token, and then it was just like this very hard stereotyping. This is it. The only thing we can be, are gun-toting robbers who live in the streets, and it's like all the stuff that was like growing up. I wasn't, as hard as Colors, even though some people say you weren't as soft as the Cosby, but like somewhere in between was my existence as a Black man, a single parent mother without the father around. This is a huge deal, how you develop. So I have what's called my composite father, right? All these other men in my life who have inspired and helped me to become who I am. I'm a father of 3. I've been married for about 15 years. Like, that's not what you expect from, my father was never there. He got 2 other baby mothers. I got 5 siblings outside of my mom. My mother raised us by herself. She never really dated anybody. So where's that young boy going to get that? And so within our work, right, I think we share a lot of these other things, fathers being tender, men thinking about what happens during the abortion. Sometimes we get to a place where we almost act like we don't think men have feelings,
And see, that's what I'm referring to as far as vulnerability.
Being able to be vulnerable, to say, hey, I hurt. My heart is broken. Right. I miss my child. These things are things we don't think about. And you get these caricatures, particularly with Black men, that are so hard. It's very much like you're either, soft and wimpy or whatever, or you're like super thug, and there's no room for us to be there. So I have been, really invested in teasing out, like Lauren says, those pieces of our poetry where we are vulnerable, where we are doing the atypical Black men thing, because you got to present another image. You got to combat what the majority image is. And for too long in my life, the majority image was, Black guy holding the gun at the camera. Video, women are being, mistreated, whatever, and objectified. Yes. Yeah. Some of this stuff is normal. I don't like the other end where they go to say, well, being a man is toxic. There are elements of manhood that if you're not taught the right thing, you can get toxic with. But there are lots of beautiful things about men that no one really talks about, and being a father in a household seeing it from this angle. Sometimes it makes me want to cry, man, because I see like no one's understanding. You know, my daughter comes in and says, "Hey, Daddy, I just want to, I love you," mwah. And she walks away, and I'm like, but no one sees that guy. No one sees that guy, right? You're looking at what 50 Cent is doing right now. They're focusing on, Chris and Will with the slap or whatever. Like, we're not looking at all these brilliant, wonderful things and some of these wonderful roles and stories that come out. So I think men's mental health, the preservation of the family, the active. I always say I'm a full-time father. Like that's something that we promote. Like the active fatherhood is a big thing. We've had shows on fatherhood in terms.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things, right? Protection and love of your family.
I would hate to say it, but also the all the images that they have. What we try to do is try to disembowel all the negativity, especially not so much just as the toxic, but also the emasculation of Black men. Because it doesn't really get addressed, and and there's nothing wrong with how people walk and talk in life. It's just that Black men have always been a certain way or looked upon in a certain way, and if that doesn't work, that's when they try to reshape him or program him to be something that's totally different, and that's when we come in and try to show who we are.
Right, in the shuffle, you lose different aspects, right? Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, we're here to represent. We've performed at Job Corps, which is one of my favorite shows. One of my favorite shows. Shouts to Job Corps, Rhode Island. Amika brought us out. Awesome.
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. Amika,
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Amika as well. We got brought out to Job Corps, and it was something like 250 young men.
Wow.
Like, working, on getting their Job Corps certificate and so forth. So it's like they don't get any of this creative programming usually, right? They're like, the kids built the set for us and helped to hang things. So that's part of their job. They're doing construction on that. It was beautiful stuff to me to be able to go and serve a population and share a story that they wouldn't normally get. At technical schools and places, you don't get a lot of creative programming. So this is a really great opportunity. But that was one of my favorites because they were rapt attention. And that was our play called Yes, I Am, which was sort of the original poetry play about, these four guys meeting in the park at 5 a.m. playing chess. That's a whole other play.
Yeah.
It's a whole other play.
Yes, I can definitely say I am proud to be my father's daughter. I think this is probably why, and also my little brother is in my care, but I think like when it comes to Black men, I've just been around such strong positive figures that I'm just like, yo, what is going on in the media, and why are we having these conversations about like toxic masculinity and all these things? This is why in my classes, even when I'm just teaching writing, I actually start teaching with August Wilson's Fences because I like to teach young people to be like, we really need to look at, and why I love that play, we really need to look at the source of the man. And I'm glad that y'all do a lot of that work. And as you were talking in terms of vulnerability and also like different father figures in the media, one of the ones that I point to a lot of my students as an alternative to look at not necessarily a good or bad image is, dang it, I forgot his name, but from Everybody Hates Chris, the father figure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a
little Terry.
Yep, played by Terry Crews, but I forgot the name. Yeah, the name of the father's character, and just looking at, even though he's still a very interesting character, it's a different take on a Black father, especially now I'm kind of understanding like why Chris Rock said it in the 80s, even though he would have been an adult by then, because of like the Cosbys and all these other things, these very disparate and very like parallel on other ends, the types of father figures that existed during that time.
Right, and really media was a very important, and still is, maybe more for good then. It was a very, very important tool for helping to, condition, not in a bad way, condition and help to share ideas way quickly in mass to people. So I think, I met many, many, many white kids at college who had been influenced in a positive way by the Cosby Show. You know, and so the influence is the influence. I can't really go and break down all the personal stuff I wasn't there for. But I know as a young person, receiving the content this way, it influenced me. Part of why I'm a good, effective father right now is because of the images Mr. Cosby put on the screen. As well as some Family Matters and a couple other shows that were there. But that's what we had if we didn't have fathers. That's what we had. Were some shows that showed you. So I learned from Mr. Cleaver and Mr. Brady, because they were there, and if it didn't apply, it didn't apply. But if it applied, I said, I might take that and use that later when I'm a parent. So I think our messages really are still about some of the more positive things to help inspire young people. That was one of my favorite shows, the Job Corps. But other places we've been to where there have been young people, where they've come up to us and said, what you did just changed my life. And I go, okay. But all I did was a piece about my father being absent. I remember Brooklyn, Saturday, going to cartoons, relaxing. And it's like, some reason that affected them. And if it's just one person, we always say 1 or 1,000. Yeah. If it's one person or 1,000 people give the same show, and the person will come up to you and say, hey, that was for me. And I'm thankful to you for bringing that to me,
Nice. So one of the other things that Marlon and I talked about in our pre-show chat was the world of slam poetry, and that the two of you have experience in that world. So, and I'm from spoken word performance poetry. So I would love to know, especially given this whole thing about like spoken word, slam poetry, the published word, and all these things, what did you learn from the worlds of slam poetry and spoken word that you carry over into the work of Brothers Keeper?
I like that. I like that one.
Well, again, I would say the inspiration of how they performed and how they presented themselves. I remember I watched Israel. What was her first?
Niall.
Yeah. And she did a video. I mean, not a video. She did a poem that was dealing with abortion. But you didn't know about it. And she was the one that was being aborted, And it was like, that threw me for a loop because I wasn't expecting it. And it was something that was like totally different, So I'm like, I got to write something of my experience on dealing with that. So I ended up writing.
Is that Amethyst? Okay.
So
the origin story of Amethyst. Yeah. I'm here for this.
But it took me maybe about a month, throwing paper away. Well, I was typing it, but trying to get it to where it needed to be just to make it. And my thing is, it had to be, as we say, a 30, in the poetry slam. So
it's just 3 10s. To clarify, a 30 poem is you get 0 to 10 for 5 judges. They drop the high and the low. So the highest possible score you can get in a slam typically is 3 10s for a 30.
The only problem is that the poem is too long. So it would never make a 30 unless I edit it to the point where it's under the
3 minutes 10 seconds. Yeah,
right. But it does well in a slam if I was to, or even in a performance.
I didn't know that though. So Niall inspired the Amethyst piece.
Correct.
Very interesting. So I'd say for me, the competitive energy, that bombastic, I get on stage and I'm gonna tear it up vibe that you have to get. If you're gonna compete in anything at all, you need to have some sense of ego, some sense of like, I'm one of the best. I'm one of the best in this game. That is what keeps bringing me back to slam, and that's some of what I bring to the group. I mean, not for nothing. Done a lot of different performances. I've been a slam champion in a number of ways, and I'm very proud of that work. But again, I apply that to the group, meaning we bring the energy, we bring sort of we put all those slam energies together. And if you imagine I was going to kick a 30, he was going to do a 30. So, but that's that's tons of points right there in your face. So, for me, it's just about what I learned from slam was iron sharpens iron. I wasn't as good at performance until I was against some of the best, until I had to beat the best. And so I think what I've noticed with Lawrence and Eunice, because Eunice didn't always slam either, when they both started going to it, and I don't know, I'll tell you the story about art later in terms of the art that I met and the art that we know now. Pre-slam, people can be a little less powerful, if you will, right? When you really, really go and you're battle hardened, because you're going against some of the best, not only in your state, but in the other states. And everyone who goes to nationals comes back with a sharpened sword, comes back better. So for me, all those, and then Art and I ended up, after years of me going and him kind of like making just below and just almost making it, one year he broke through the ranks and we were on the same team. And that's how some of our group poems got together, because, after really respecting and liking each other at Slam, we now had to work together and come together every week for a few months in order to get ready to go to nationals. And so he and I got really, really close around this time. But I noticed his skills stepping up, because Slam requires you to understand you got 3 minutes and 10 seconds to win the room. You got to win the room. And literally, so not only are different theories that come across, not only are they say slams are won or lost in the first round, meaning the first time an audience sees you, they decide whether they want to see you again.
Right.
A piece in the first, I'd say within the first 60 seconds. The first 30 or 60 seconds, you have to have them. Because if you're 30 seconds into the poem and I don't know what you're saying, if I'm a minute into a poem and I'm not really with you, it's hard to imagine I'm going to give you a 10 at the end unless you really ramp it up.
Right.
So it's always little constraints that come along. So I think I approach Brothers Keeper with, man, we got to get them the first 10 seconds. You got to go in and go, and then keep them and hold them. And at the end, bring them back, having learned a lesson about Black men, having picked up something new about the way we do poetry. I didn't think they would do it like that. I didn't expect that. If you don't leave from that, then I haven't done my job. So I want something unique. I want something that's better than if it was a solo round robin, and I want you to leave thinking, wow, these poets are different than those poets. That sort of thing.
It was another thing too, is that we try to make sure that we don't leave money on the table. When we leave, we're making sure that we don't leave any money on the table. That means they'll want us back again. And so we continuously go to East Providence City Hall.
Shout out to East Providence City Hall. Elmer Pina.
We every now and then we had occasion to go to Stevens.
It's the Stevens Center, which is a great place to. It's a Stevens Center.
Like a group home.
It's like a group home for young people, but I think it tends to be related to substance abuse. So it's a substance abuse group home for young people. And so we go and we perform for these young men. And man, I'm telling you, it makes just tears. When I leave that event, I feel like I've done such important work.
Right.
I do a lot of different things. But when I perform for children, for youth, for those teens who are like right on the edge, and they come up to you, because teens are the audience that doesn't ever have to say anything to you. They'll go like, and they'll leave. But if a young person comes up and says, yo, man, oh, what you did, oh, wow, so thank you guys for coming, you better hold that. You better hold that tightly, because a teen does not have to come to you and give you any props. In fact, it's not cool to go give props. So when they do it, it must mean that you stirred their heart. And so that's what I go for, is really to inspire the young people. But yeah, man, that's a huge one.
I love that. So the next question, and I I'm going to be really curious, especially Marlon's response to this question, because I believe you actually have a degree in creative writing. So, what do y'all think are some advantages and challenges to poetry, slam poetry, and spoken word?
Challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I go ahead.
I think I've had conversations with Art Collins, and I got to the point where I was constantly losing, not even making it to the finals, and in slam poetry. And he goes, dude, first of all, most of your writings is all Black awareness. There's more to life than just Black awareness. And I was like, so the light bulb came on, and now I had to write things. And when I say Black awareness, it's mostly the police brutality, the discrimination, and all that. But there's other people suffering, maybe not in the same vein, but they're still suffering. And if they're still suffering, that means they ain't got time to be worrying about what other people. They got to get their stuff together. So that was one of the challenges. And so that's when I started seeing the vulnerability of just people, especially men in general, because we would never display it. So that was my challenge, just by listening to what Art Collins had to say, critiquing my work. Like, oh, this is dope, but this poem right here sounds the same as this last poem. It ain't the same poem, but it's just a continuation of what you already said. And you can only say so much. So we need to redirect what you need to write, or what your capabilities are, what you see and what you experience. Just visualize what other people see in life in general that's outside of your own ideology. And so I took upon the challenge, and that's when I started writing differently, not just in slam, but in the ideas and differences of other people.
Right.
So,
I mean, I think for me, having left the hood, went to college, got the bachelor's degree, came back, and then getting into slam, which is a very emotional craft, right? So I found myself, we're talking about the Black awareness stuff, right? You coming back home from North Carolina, small college, you're back home, and now you're in the slam, and all the Black brothers are talking about the hood and talking about the cops and talking about the injustice. And it's like, how do you stand out if the subject's all the same?
right.
And so for me, having this, I've always loved words. When a lot of my friends were doing video games and basketball, the reason why I don't have all the best handle is because I could write. I was in the house reading books, writing. So I struggled for a little bit with not being too verbose or too caught up in the language and the craft, because what my compatriots have is a distinct and solid, almost instinctive sense of the real, right? What is heart? They go in, and it's not, alliterative language or any kind of figurative. They're really going right in. Times are hard. The man's on my back. I can't stand this stuff. Liberation. And so, how do I compete against that? Well, I was going right to the craft. I was going right to, poetry is my passion, prejudice is my pain, and my purpose has changed. When I preach, I can't pretend it, so I'll push, because I'm doing alliteration, playing with actual poetic tools in order to stand out against people who may have had much more, the heart. The audience's heart, because they said, Roxbury is having a hard time right now, and the cops are everywhere, and we can't take it. People in the room from Roxbury who are beset by these problems, we're not necessarily going to hear all your craft and all your, metaphors, similes, and all the different things. They want to know, how does this relate to me? And that's something that's distinctive about poetry slam versus traditional poetry or other kinds of writing. Poetry slam allows you to be free. Someone comes in and goes, I've got a feeling everything gonna be all right. you're gonna listen to what they have to say next because they got you with this hook that is
Right.
tapping, right into that part of you. So slam can be a little deceptive in that way, but I had to compete. So for me, the challenge was to write from the heart, to not write for the audience per se. Like I'm trying to extract your love, trying to extract. That's predatory and scary. Don't do that. First, write from your heart, then figure out how to deliver the message in such a way that it gets the people engaged. First things first, be true. And that's what I've learned. So the challenge is how to stay true in a competitive field that makes you want to win. So you gotta figure out what device, how can I win, and also staying in a place where you keep the whole room. I don't just want to appeal to the men, black men in the room. I want to get the room. I want to get the humans in the room to feel the thing or to understand the thing I'm talking about, even if I'm talking about a particular subject. If I'm writing a piece about Ahmaud Arbery, I want to write it in such a way that everybody in the room is going to feel what I want them to feel. So that's sort of some of the things is really how to not write above or below your audience, how to write to them. And I think the path to that starts with your own heart. Be true to you. Read your poem in the mirror to yourself and feel it. Does it do something to you? Then you share.
Yeah, I'm seeing. So I'm a fan. I wish I was brave enough, but I'm a fan, huge fan of like stand-up comedy, improv, and all those things. And it's like I hear a lot of parallels, like a lot of similarities, especially because also I have training in theater, and theater, of course, connects differently to the audience. And I feel like with spoken word, slam, and stand-up comedy, you have to connect with everyone in the room, which is quite different. Theater, yes, that is an outcome, but it's not necessarily the thing that you're doing. It's all about the playwright's intent and what the playwright wants to say, as opposed to what we want everyone in the audience to leave with. Like, how do we connect with, in some cases, because there's some venues that are huge, and I'm thinking about a lot of like comedians. Like Kevin Hart was here in the area recently at Mass Mutual in Springfield, Mass. And I'm like, okay, how can you play to an audience of like 10,000 plus? How can you connect to all of those people? And it's that whole, you have to really think about the set and what you're writing. So you can't necessarily write just from your experience, and also just write from that very small, narrow, like I'm only going to talk about, like you said, like Roxbury. And, and when you do, and if you do that, you have to make sure that you're not distancing the people who don't know about that experience. And also you don't want to make amends with people who are from that area. So I hope that all makes sense.
I also would like to say that as a performer, because when you speak, we're talking about performers in general, is to know your audience. Know, like, especially your surroundings, your whereabouts. Now, we had Lizard Lounge, and again, I'm not bringing out any names. We had the Lizard Lounge that was a guest at the AS220. So we're talking Boston was competing against Providence. And as like I said, when it comes to your performance, and you have this agenda, I'm gonna do this black poem. Then the next one goes, I'm gonna do this black poem, and the next one's gonna do. This is all on the same team from Boston, the Lizard Lounge, and then they're competing with the gay and lesbian community. They're competing with people that are in politics. They're competing with other people that have other ideologies outside the black experience. So they ended up losing because they didn't know their surroundings. And it's not that they lost because they wasn't good. It was just if we're going to deal with teenagers, we come up with a storyline that's focused on what their issues are,
Yeah.
what their experience is, on how we all work kids. So how do we make the difference or the connection between us and them? And I think that has a lot to do with knowing your surrounding and the experience that you bring to the table.
There's a big difference between
Right.
delivering a message effectively and browbeating.
And what?
And browbeating.
Right.
You don't want to browbeat anybody. You don't want to deliver your point so much that they lose it and they're no longer interested in hearing, because it's a lot. We all know what's going on. What poets do best is illuminate what's already there and show it in a different light. Like, that's really what since I was a young person, I've always felt that way. I'm going to talk about what's happening in my everyday surroundings, but I'm going to make it look and sound different. And that's what's going to make it interesting and have you look at it. Like, you go back to some of their oldest poems, so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow beside the... It's like, when you look at poetry, it's supposed to do all of that. Bring an image, create something. I never thought of it that way. And
that reminds me of, I'd say last year, prior to him passing away, Dougie Fresh, and he was in the Poetry Slam, and he ended up doing a poem on the environment.
This is Douglas Bishop, by the way. Yeah. Douglas Bishop, rest in peace. We call him Dougie Fresh locally because, and he's an older white teacher, English teacher, but fantastic. Imagine, right, see your face? Imagine an older white guy earning the name Dougie Fresh in the hood. He's a fantastic gentleman, and he did a lot of great things in Lowell in particular, where he got a lot of the youth teams going and got them competing, and he would bring that team. He did a great job building up. So yeah. Douglas Bishop, if you look up his poetry, he's a fantastic, fantastic guy. He wasn't a black writer, but he was a fantastic writer. It would have been great for me to talk to.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that nod. I'm definitely going to look him up. I'm always looking for any strong writers that are especially able to make a connection with like large groups of folks. So I have 2 more questions for you before we wrap up today. As the this one's going to be intense. As the socio-political, and this is like my whole writing can be political question. As the socio-political, socio-cultural landscape changes, especially for people of color, how do you see your work evolving?
Whew. All right, I'm gonna go first because I think you can. He's gonna do a message after this. Yeah. He's gonna preach. This is the thing. As a writer, as a poet, as a performer, and performer/activist, I have recognized those times when I have missed at least my own personal mark. Right, the mark that I have of we're supposed to be. The town criers crying out these things and all the wrong. We were supposed to do it because you've been given this gift and this is what you're supposed to do. I didn't write a 9/11 poem while it was happening. For some reason, there were too many New York poets in particular dropping these poems because they're going through it. They're poets. So, but you're going to Islam and you're like, okay, I can't write mine and put it out because I'm going to look like I'm pandering. So time goes by, and I've only got a sliver of what my poem could have been, right? That's a missed moment. I didn't document. I didn't say something. So I've been trying to be very, very, focused on the idea of how can I represent my time, be more like a Langston Hughes, who in real time, if it wasn't a poem, it was an essay. If it was an essay, it was something about the times that says, I'm here and I'm reporting and I'm recording this, and I'm sharing it. So I think that's, really right now, what we need is more writers who are cognizant of their job, who are writing about the situation in real time. Each day you do not write that president name poem, you're not talking about it. You're not documenting it for future generations to know what really happened here. And the problem is when poets don't write, when singers don't sing, and actors don't act out these things, they disappear like it never happened. And that's unfortunate. So I think it is an important job as this stuff changes, the socio-political landscape. We need to write and share more material that reminds people of not just what was, but what could be. And also document what's happening right now. because no one is saying the emperor has no clothes, the emperor has no clothes, and people don't understand. And so for me, I've lately been really just thinking about, as part of why Brother Up came together, this idea of this set that we're doing at Bombix on the 26th is really like, okay, what can we do, that won't put us in such a disadvantage that we can't provide for our families? Because that's the hardest thing about connecting poetry and politics. You want to eat? So what is it that we can say? What is it that we can do right now that would help? And I think the idea of Brother Up implies get together with your brother and talk about the news. Get together with your brother and figure out what to do to feed your community, what to do to help. Because a lot of things are going on and shifting around us, and our immigrant brothers and sisters are being taken off left and right. And we're just not looking at stuff like, I come from Jamaica. I was here, I was 8 years old, and I came here on a green card. So I know what's going on, and I understand what's happening to people. So it behooves me to write about it. And so that sort of thing is where I think we're going to change a little bit. We're going to be able to, adapt. And Brother Up is a part of that, of our evolution, to be able to, what can we do to help? We notice young Black men are having difficulty right now with mental health. How can we help with that? Let's Brother Up. It's not just a play. It's not a presentation. It is a movement.
So one of the things, and I say that a lot, one of the things, because there's many of the things. When we have gigs, and he would be more in tune of what I'm saying, we'll have a get together prior to the show, and they're like, "Oh, I seen your work, love your work, da 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 da. Be free of how you want to act, but don't push the envelope. You can push the envelope, but make sure it doesn't hit the floor." So what do you do with that when you are in a situation, personally, in a situation that you're trying to express what you're going through, but they don't want you to hurt anybody else's feelings? My feelings are hurt. So when we have all these political issues that we're having in today's society, all of a sudden we have to be the new Malcolm X's. We have to be the new Martin Luther Kings. And we shouldn't have to fight for the rights that we've already fought for. Now there's a new battle going on. And you think I'm not going to write about it? You think, how many people have already had arguments, not just at work, but on Facebook or social media? Because I'm going to say what I need to say. You may not like it, but you can't deny what I'm actually saying, because the proof is in the pudding. So if I see Black men still getting shot at since Emmett Till, I'm going to speak about it. When I see that we have political gains of taking away our civil rights, with segregation, the lingo of segregation coming back, all these things, I have to speak about it. Regardless of any other poets, they all say the same thing. I'm going to speak of it. But at the end of the day, 20 years from now, they're going to say Lawrence Nunes was here because he spoke about it.
Amen. And, here's the husband. Is the husband coming through there?
Yep. I told you.
I was looking for it. No,
yes.
but certainly, we are aware of our mission as a group of Black men who are for positive. The minute you sign up and say, I'm on the good side, there's responsibilities.
Right.
So we recognize that. And we really do try our best to inspire, to engage, and empower. Not just men, we're there fighting for our sisters too, because whenever you guys want to do it, let me know when we're going to go march on Washington, because they have not taken care of women's hygiene health for years. There's no talk about, making reparations for this. Like, why would women have to go sue because all these companies have been damaging them for years? That should be a no-brainer. We as a nation should put some money aside. Women should not have to go march to say, well, now that you've announced that you've been damaging us for all these years, what are we going to do? I have 2 daughters. I have a wife. I have sisters and a mom. Like, there's no way that I'm not incensed about what's happening. They took away Roe versus Wade. Like, I'm in arms about this, and it's a little sad to me that women at large aren't fighting for their own issues like that. All I know is I got to be able to talk about what I know with the brothers. But anytime y'all are ready to go, that's a big one.
Yeah, but you know what? There is always that conflict of interest. We ended up doing what's the name of that? In New Bedford. We did the
For the college?
yeah, for the college. I can't. It was like a community college.
That was Bristol Community College. That's
Bristol Community College. And the poem that you heard, Am I My Brother's Keeper, got a standing ovation. We even had a lady that did sign language to the poem. And after the poem was all said and done, Art and I happened to walk towards the wall, and this Jewish lady was so not petrified, she was so annoyed and frustrated by one of the lines that we said. And I was asking her, what did we say that offended you? And she said the line about the Torah. But she didn't hear the whole, she heard Torah and she ran with it and not listening to the whole content of what we were, or context of what we were actually saying. So these are the struggles that we go through. We don't mean to offend anybody, but these are the things that need to be said so that we can move forward.
Yeah, because actually I have a spoken word piece, The Loud Black Woman Shall Speak Now. And like it's one of those pieces that expands and retracts whatever happens in history. I first wrote it in 2009. And depending on poem, what's going on in the world, it's been revised multiple times. And every time I perform it, I say, one, this is an exhausting piece. It's about 5 minutes to perform because it's of the weight of the world. But lastly, I'm talking about stuff y'all keep saying y'all don't want to hear anymore. So I'm like, stop doing the stuff so you can stop hearing this poem. Like, stop doing the thing. Because I'm tired of performing this poem, y'all. Stop doing the thing. And I will stop saying this.
And I'll stop. Exactly. I like that.
Yeah. And then also you just made me think about we're in this, because when you said about like being very careful what like you're performing about, but you still want to keep the integrity of the group, we're existing. And then I have one last question. We're existing in this moment. So I also one of the subjects I teach is arts management. And like one of the conversations, of course, that we're having right now is how do we retain the work when we may have to change what we're doing to keep funding because NEA is pulling stuff because of DEI, which I'm like, if I hear one more person say I'm going to punch them because I'm like, I don't think you really understand what DEI is.
What the DEI are. Right. They don't know what they stand for at all.
Right. They don't. And I feel like I got to find a different term, but I feel like we're in this moment of, it's not even Robin Hood. I got to fit because it's very Robin Hood-esque, except for it's the backwards. It's like, we're going to rob from the poor to pay the rich. And so now it's like, okay, how do we, and I used to work for a grant funder. I've been on both sides. I've written grants and I've been a program officer. And I'm like, how we gonna sing the master today to get our bread? Like we've always had to do that as artists, but we have to do it even more so now and separate it from we can't talk about DEI. Like I'm tired. Like I'm just like, yo. So it's like we're existing. I may be rambling, but it's like we're existing. And this is why that question was so important. We're existing in this world where we had like this moment first from when George Floyd was assassinated until probably November of 2024, where it was like, which I knew it was a moment of inauthenticity where we're like, we want everything black to be in the center. And I'm like, okay, let's see how long this lasts. Oh, there it is. He who shall not be named got reelected. And I was like, yep, I knew this moment wasn't going to last long. And so now everything black, people of color, immigrant, anything that is against the president orangutan is like getting snatched. And so I'm just like, how, like, oh, there's the husband again. Like, how can we continue to do the work? Because I don't want to have to change. I just want to do the work without having to worry about censorship, without having to worry about cancel culture. And people who know me very well know that I am the most politically incorrect. And, so just multiple things. So that's why I really wanted to ask that question, because I'm like, we're existing in this moment where after so much opportunity, so much is now not only being taken away, but so much is being silenced as if it never existed.
It's the craziest thing, man. So you fight, you get these gains, and it was a legitimate thing to say, hey, it's 2024, and we still haven't gotten what we were fighting for decades now. But then they take all that, and you're supposed to go back to another sense of, now I'm so grateful for this little bit because you took it all. Like, no, what we had before wasn't enough. Honestly, we had come many, many years past the death of Dr. Martin Luther King and the assassination of all this stuff, and we still were not very far gone. But those little gains, if you yank them, then it's a big deal to put them back. It's like, That's the crazy thing about right now you have to watch. I think a lot of it is taking away and scaling away and disrupting so that when you go, okay, put it back, you look like you did something. It's very, very frightening tactic that they're doing. And so, no, I knew that, Ahmaud Arbery happened not so long ago. George Floyd happened not so long ago. Trayvon Martin. It didn't happen so long ago. Breonna Taylor. And we spent a lot of time talking about the males because we're four brothers. And I always say, look, a lot of sisters want to get down. They go, oh, come on, why the brothers? This? I got you. But we started off, and our mission has been about particularly male issues. But yes, other people, all kinds of people are very important. But we, because of our background and our history, are focusing in on the black male. Because a lot of times the black male gets disregarded like a non-person. If it were a white man, a white woman, a black woman, and anybody else but a black man being dragged across the back on asphalt would have been a different story. For some reason, we all collectively agree that a certain amount of violence can happen on black male bodies in particular that can happen to anybody else. There's no way you're going to shoot a white man 50 times in the back, Chinese man 50 times in the back, woman, it's not going to happen. But for some reason, when this happens to black men in particular, the entire nation has been led to believe in their minds clouded.
Yeah, but so I don't mean to cut you off, but and so we're going there now. Now you open up a can of worms, and you can see the comparison with Rittenhouse and Carmelo Anthony. We have two people that killed, and one, the Rittenhouse guy, he's looked at as a hero, and Carmelo Anthony is looking at he's the guilty one. Granted, he killed somebody, but he doesn't get the same love as the Rittenhouse guy, and you can't dance around that. You know what I'm saying? So I get in arguments with people, and my wife says, I don't even know why you even bother, because if I don't say anything, I have two grandsons 20 years from now, and they're going to say, GP, why didn't you say anything? Where was you at? So this is where we're at. So now we get to, my group gets to lab up and have this conversation and put it on stage.
Nice. And before we go on to the last question, the other thing that I wanted to say is how particular folks of power are erasing our experiences in this country. And as an educator, I really don't want to in 10 years or so. And I've seen it between generations where we have the No Child Left Behind to now, and also my background, what history has been taught and has been erased. And I'm 92% of the African continent. I was able to identify the first enslaved ancestor that made it by name on the census. I don't want anybody to sit here and tell me that from 16, whatever, blah, 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 to 2024, the Black experience did not have all of these injustices and all these things not to have it erased. And then lastly, I don't want anybody to tell me, be like, yeah, so your people arrived here on a cruise ship with no return ticket. Like, I don't know. I'm like, no. Like, so this is why the arts for me is so important, because we are like James Baldwin, we are witnessing and documenting not only the current experience, but we want to forecast and envision what could be in the future.
So glad you mentioned Baldwin. I mean, that's exactly, it's
Yeah.
one American who was very much about telling them like a TI is, letting them
Yeah.
know what's going on, and shaming America when America needed to be shamed. And I feel
Yeah.
like so many people are caught up with this idea of what was written on paper, these lofty words. I've come far enough with these lofty words to know that they were written by scoundrels. They're written by people who were just who came to take advantage of everything, who really wanted to continue to take the largest slice of whatever pie there was to share it among their cronies and all that. I do a lot of work up at Brown University. I was brought one time to do extensive research for a spoken word piece about Brown's involvement in the slave trade.
Yep.
I mean, and there's so much stuff. I mean, so many people who were like loaning their slaves to go build the Brown campus. Just loaned their services out for an investment or a piece of the school. What? I mean, it's just all the stuff that's underneath it all. And these scoundrels got together and wrote these very lofty words that they didn't believe in then. But no one's going to say that, right? These words are so well written. They stand in the parchment paper being preserved behind air conditioning glass. They don't believe that shit, yo. They don't believe it at all in practice.
Yeah.
And so you look at America, look at what's going on, and this whole whitewashing and erasing and taking away of things, it's not for us.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the future little white kids.
Right. We have a speed bump.
They don't care if they know we're going to sit there and hide in the schoolhouses and open the old books and teach our kids, here's what really happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
There's an intent to not let their kids know, here's what really happened to them.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell you what really happened to them. All you need to know is that you're on the good side, and we thank your lucky stars and your God that you're on the right side of things. And that's what they're raised to believe. And when you encounter these individuals who are like, what are you talking about? The greatest number of people on welfare are black people. And they go, no, you should do your research.
Yep.
You know? And they are minds blown when they find out that it's white women.
Are you sure that their minds are blown? Or they gets conflicted with their own excuse?
They put something else in front of it, right? It might, it has to be because of this. Right. But they don't sit with the fact. Absorb it. Look at the numbers. You know, if you're the greater population, then of course there's more of you guys in jail. Like, it's just people don't look at the real, and that's the problem. So you condition entire generations and generations of people, and they know every 4 years the memory resets. Every 4 years, and they keep doing it so they can reset something and tell you it happened differently.
Right.
Like, no. How is it possible that this guy can say, and I hate to go to politics, but how can he possibly say that the Ukraine invaded Russia and that's how this war started? If that's not 1984, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes.
Frightening. No, we're not at war with so and so and so. We're at war with so and so this week. And people are like, I guess so. We are living in frightening times.
Yeah.
And less people are reading, less people are listening to poetry, less people are going to theater.
I thank God for museums.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I went to go see her relatives in Alabama. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie Just Mercy with Jamie Foxx.
So what happened was, so I know the book and I love Bryan Stevenson's work. I'm very scared to see it.
The museum?
The museum I want to go to, but Just Mercy, I'm afraid to see the film.
I'm not.
I'm like, I know what I'm gonna get. I know how I'm gonna have to probably fight some people. But yes, I'm very familiar.
So now I have to rewind the story because you just opened up another can of worms. We went to Louisiana. We get on the bus while we were there in New Orleans. And my thing was I wanted to go see a plantation to get the real, you know. So we had a black bus driver, right? And he goes, well, we're going to 3 different plantations. We're going to Gone with the Wind, Laura Plantation, and the Whitney Plantation. So everybody, said what they want, where they wanted to go. And I said, well, my crew, I said, where you want to go? And then the black guy, the driver, looked at me and he goes, you mean to tell me you want to go to the Gone with the Wind? It's like, nah, I just wanted to. He goes, you don't want that. I'm going to give you the real. So we went to the Laura Plantation, and then the next day we went to the Whitney Plantation. And when I tell you, there was people just weeping, and here's my wife eating a bag of chips, just enjoying the story. And I'm like, you don't feel? She goes, listen, we've gone through this. I'm the outcome of the success story. So I know, if I've done my crying 10 years ago. So, and I'm like, I feel you on that. So, the Gone with the Wind, it's about the house and how the drapes are and all that. When we went to Laurel Plantation, our host told us about how the owner went to the next plantation and asked the question, how do I build the house? He says, you have to get the slaves from Senegal because they're more cultural in laboring with carpentry.
Oh yeah.
You have to go to Benegal or Benin because they're into rice. So they know who to get and how to go about getting it. So now I go back to the Stevenson, the museum in Alabama, and first thing you do is you walk in. Don't matter what side of the wall, it's the same story. That way you're not like leaning over anybody. You just turn around and watch it. You hear waterfall, and then you see all the slaves that got thrown overboard. It takes about 2 hours. One of the things I remember was a guy by the name of Anthony who owned 450 acres, and he was trying to sell a seed to the store. And the guy looked at it and he goes, nah, I don't want to buy it for 10 cents. So he says, well, that's what I'm selling it for. He says, well, you're not getting it. So he says, okay, give me my seed back. He says, you're not getting the seed. Now get off my land, or get off my porch in the store. Get out of my store. So he leaves and he gets the cops. To make the long story short, the Klan came and everything, and he ended up getting hanged. And now in South Carolina, they have a plaque of the guy that got his land taken, 450 acres of land. And my question was to the people at the museum, did the family get the land back? But I don't care if you have a plaque in South Carolina. Did we get our money back? Did we get our land back? And nobody could answer that question. So this is the thing about when you have history and it gets tossed to the side, somebody needs to write about it and somebody needs to ask questions.
I like that.
Yeah. And lastly, before I ask my last question, which we've been on for a bit, and I appreciate this. So my husband, he does Civil War reenactments. And I remember I went with him to Fredericksburg, Virginia a couple of years ago. And I said, I want to go to a plantation because I found out my family originally came through Virginia and then went south, went further south. And we're looking up places to go, and we're seeing all these. We Google prosperous agricultural center, and I was like, what? And me in my mouth, I'm like, can we go? And I like come in with a bullhorn and be like, I would like tickets to see your plantation. Why? This is what I mean by political correctness and political incorrectness. Please tell me what this place was. This is the Prosperous Agricultural Center. Like, what are we? Are we real? I was like, are we really going to do that?
Yeah, unpaid volunteers,
right? Or apprenticeships.
Right.
I was so angry. I was just like, this is not happening.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So we're doing the mission. We're out here. We're telling the stories. We're at least presenting the kaleidoscope of the Black male experience. Because I
Yes.
think who else is gonna say what we're feeling besides us? And I think I think the part I was gonna say when you were talking earlier about why it's just very imperative to do this now is Black men who live past 40, we ain't taking nobody else's. We're just done. We're kind of like, yo, for me, after 40, I really was just like, God damn it, still going on. You know,
Get off my lawn.
it's what Nina Simone was like when she sang that song, and everybody knows about Mississippi. God damn. Because that's what she was feeling. She's like, I can't stand it. You're all gonna die like flies. Like she really it's kind of like the culmination of all of the microaggressions that we all feel. And I think if we don't talk about this stuff, we explode. Which is why we made the blues. You know, we made the blues to kind of have a valve on some of the stuff we're going through. All of our stuff in this country has been that way, and across the world, all the times that we've been oppressed. So for me, after 40, really not closing my lips, not like shutting down my voice. I'm a grown man. My stuff is legit. You can't pull me over for nothing. Oh yeah, we back. That's kind of what's different from being a 17-year-old young man and everybody get against the wall. I'm gonna search all your pockets just for fun, huh? To I got lawyers. What? You know, it's very, 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 very different. So now they got to back up a little bit.
They say that the most dangerous Black man is when he ain't got nothing to lose.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. So very, very different. And we're still fighting. We're still pushing every day, but we do a small part of the mission to inspire and excite young people, not about just language, but about performance and about like just, this job of being a bard or a griot, That's what we are. We're still the griot. We're still carrying it, modern day griot. So
Yeah. And the last question I have for you both. So this is for you like as individual artists and writers, and for Brothers Keeper. What is next for you, and how can a Black Writers Read community support you on these journeys?
Well, first things first, April 26th, we're going to be at the Bombix Center out in Northampton, Mass. And we're going to be rocking it out. There'll be 5 of us. You see 2 now. There'll be 3 others. And we'll be performing our sort of debut of the Brother Up set, which is going to grow into a play. And which it's going to be a wonderful time. Poetry and pie. We're going to have the young people open up for us. So that's our next sort of big thing. And then we're going to spend a little time after that sort of refining it. There's a theater here that has great interest in putting it on. Shouts to Mixed Magic. And we'll sit down with them and maybe make it into a full-length play.
Yeah.
So that's one of the plans for it. And at that point, you're talking about getting schools to check it out, sort of getting some grants on the mental health side. That's a big part of it. We have an album. Oh, my God. The album is called Father Figures. It's dropped. It's out right now. The distributor is doing what they do distributor-wise, but it should be up and running for sure. By the day of the gig, you'll be able to have it, download it, check it out. Features some of our best poems, some group poems on there. So that Father Figures album is one of our next thing. Get the album, check out the show, and then what are you doing?
I'm my next performance by myself is at my Navy reunion.
Wow. Talk about it. Are you going to do the poem?
What poem?
You going to do the poem?
I'm going to do a couple. They give me 15 minutes. There's one of the guys, he has a whiskey and cigar. He owns a whiskey and a cigar. So he rented out like a lounge. So we're going to have like 3 days of getting together. These guys I've been in the service with since '87. So, we get together. This is our 4th Navy reunion. So, and he's, like I said, I'm going to do maybe like 15 minutes that night, and then be in the cut.
You didn't invite me at all, by the way.
Well, yeah, he wasn't on the ship.
Yes!
I wasn't there in the ship. But so really, I have Lauren. I gotta say to you that Phoenix is gonna be with us. I mentioned that. Art has a book as well. I'd love for you to talk with him about.
Yes.
He couldn't be here. He's got a book called A Black from the Bean Talks, and so that's his book. And Eunice has a book that he did with his father a few years ago. So just other things. And I want to connect you with Reggie Gibson, my partner, who
Nice.
Reggie Gibson available on my phone. I'm gonna connect him to you so you can talk. Because I have a lot of great friends with books, and I'm really grateful that you brought us, here to talk about this show at Bombix. Thank you so much for giving us a chance to be on your platform with you.
Yeah, like this is amazing. Like I definitely need to make arrangements to make sure that I can be there. Maybe a little challenging, but I want to meet. I want to meet y'all. I want to meet y'all in person.
Yes. Come with the husband, not the cats.
Yes, the cats and the dog. The reason why I'm on pet duty is because him and my stepdaughter, they're going camping that weekend. And so that's
nice.
why, yeah. So I'm like, I need to figure out the plan of how to be there at Bombix. I have to. I just had to put this up and Vanessa and I have done a lot of work together.
Hey.
Nice.
Yeah, Vanessa's an awesome good friend of mine. In fact, our kids went to preschool together. That's how long I've known her. So, eventually she connected me with the Lava Center. Shouts to Lava Center, who may have some folks come on out and check us because they're in the area. But yeah, Vanessa's been a great supporter of my work, and I appreciate her. What up?
Yeah, and Black Writers Read, we did a live there a couple of years ago at Lava Center in Greenfield.
See, it's family.
Yes.
All in the family.
Yes. So, Marlon, Lawrence, Brothers Keeper, thank you so much for being on today. I'm going to wrap us up a little bit because I have a couple of housekeeping things, but I appreciate you both so much. Thank you. Thank you for being here this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us. Shout out to you, my good sister. Keep doing your thing. I'm very, very proud of the work you're doing. I listened to several of your podcasts, and you really do a great job. So,
thank you. And sometimes I'm like, am I a hot mess? Because sometimes I could do this with my students, and I've done this on Black Writers Read where I go on my little rants, and then everyone's just staring at me, and I'm like, oh, let me rein it back a little bit. Okay. Trust me, if y'all knew my parents, rest in peace, they passed away about 10 years ago or so, y'all will be like, yes, Nicole is her parents' child. They both very extroverted, can go on rants, very political, very outspoken.
What's your sign?
I'm a Libra.
I'm a Libra. I'm a Sagittarius. So that's my talkative piece here.
Okay, that makes my husband's a Sagittarius. This now makes sense because and my bestie is a Sagittarius.
What's your husband's birthday?
November 29th.
And here?
18th. December 18th.
December 18th, and I'm December 9th. So,
wow! And my bestie is in December. So this makes sense why we were able to have such a great conversation the other day. Because I was like, I vibe with Marlon like it's nothing. I'm like, well, okay, I get it.
No, and you have great energy. Thank you so much for doing this. We all need to hear more Black voices. So thank you for putting us on.
Yeah, thank you so much, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Peace.
Yes, peace.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye. See you at Bombix Center on the 26th.
Yes, at 7:00.
Peace.
Yes. So thank you all for joining me for this episode of Black Writers Read. I had so much fun today. This was episode 21 of season 5. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Black Writers Read, as I'll be announcing our upcoming guests via this platform for the rest of April and also for May. Support Black Writers Read by subscribing to my YouTube channel, where many of you are joining us from today, or the audio podcast, which is available wherever you get your catalog of podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Amazon Music. When you're there, please drop me a review, as supporting me as a subscriber and a reviewer helps me to grow my community, helps people to find Black Writers Read. Visit blackwritersread.com to learn more about the podcast. So thank you all so very much for joining us this afternoon. For the folks who are in the New England area for the snowy afternoon, which is crazy. We got snow today. And more importantly, for ensuring that Black authors continue to matter. I'll see you soon.